Welcome to This Explainer. Grab a seat because tonight I want you to imagine we're gathering around a glowing, crackling campfire. You can almost feel the chill in the night air, right? So pull up close to the warmth of the flames. We're here to uncover the chilling origins and the hidden meanings behind 15 legendary creatures from all across the globe. And we aren't just going to look at what these monsters are, but really dig into why our ancestors felt the need to invent them in the first place.
Imagine the dark pressing in on us as we start with the creeping shadows that hide ancient warnings. It's a primal fear, that distinct, eerie feeling of being watched by something you can't quite see. Okay, let's dive right into this unseen world.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, Omens in the Shadows, Warnings from the Dark.
We're starting off in the early Middle Ages with entities that, they don't necessarily kill you themselves, but they arrive to signal that your fate is absolutely already sealed. Picture a pale woman with long hair, dressed all in white or gray, just crying out into the pitch-black night. This is the Banshee from Irish folklore. The name actually comes from the Gaelic word Banshee, which means woman of the fairy mound. But what's truly terrifying about her is her scream, known as the keening. Just imagine a sound echoing across the moors, a spine-chilling mix of wailing, sobbing, and shrieking that literally makes your blood run cold. She isn't a killer, she's a messenger. Traditionally, only certain ancient Irish families even had a personal banshee. She symbolizes unavoidable fate and perfectly captures that terrifyingly thin line between the world of the living and the supernatural.
Now, imagine turning away from the darkness, only to see someone stepping into the firelight who looks exactly like you. Seriously, what happens when you see your own face walking toward you? This primal, deeply unsettling fear brings us to the German folklore of the doppelganger.
The word literally translates to double walker. And unlike a twin or just a reflection in a mirror, a doppelganger is a perfect supernatural copy of a living person. It shares your exact appearance, your voice, your mannerisms, but it acts entirely on its own. In folklore, seeing your own doppelganger was a terrible omen. It signaled illness, madness, or imminent death. Sometimes the stories even said they would mimic your behavior to slowly replace you. This wasn't just some spooky ghost story. It was our ancestors actively wrestling with a terrifying psychological idea. It explored that underlying dread that humans have, hidden uncontrollable selves, serving as a really dark metaphor for identity loss.
Moving on to Section 2, Mysteries of the Water. The depths below.
Let's leave the shadows of the land and approach the cold, dark, and super unpredictable waters of our ancient world. Originating in Celtic and Norse coastal folklore, specifically in Scotland and Ireland, we find the Selkie. These are seal-like beings that can actually shed their skins to become fully human on land, but honestly, their stories are incredibly tragic. Many myths involve humans stealing a Selkie's skin, trapping them on land, and basically forcing them into marriage. And even when they form families, they feel this constant aching longing for the ocean. The second they recover their skin, they return to the sea, often leaving their human lives behind forever. It's a heartbreaking metaphor for the agonizing pain of living torn between two completely different worlds, representing really deep themes of freedom versus captivity.
But obviously not everything in the water is as gentle as the Selkie. Imagine this ancient warning being whispered to children. Once someone climbs onto its back, their hands stick to its skin. That is the Scottish Kelpie. Tied to rivers, lochs, and dark stretches of water, the Kelpie is a shape-shifting water spirit that usually appears as a beautiful, calm, black horse just standing at the water's edge. But it is a trap. Not exactly the pony ride you were hoping for, right? Once a rider mounts it, their hands stick fast to its cold skin, and the Kelpie plunges straight into the water to drown them. Described as unnatural and constantly dripping wet, the Kelpie served as a highly effective, terrifying warning to travelers about the deadly dangers of unfamiliar waters.
Plunging even deeper now into ancient Near Eastern and biblical mythology, we encounter the Leviathan. This isn't just your standard monster. It is an enormous, armored, and entirely unstoppable sea serpent. Some texts actually describe its breath as fire and its scales as completely impenetrable by human weapons. In the Hebrew Bible, Leviathan represents a chaotic force of the ocean's terrifying unknown depths, a force that only God has the power to control or destroy. Over time, it really came to represent humanity's ultimate fear of the vast, unknown depths and the forces that are entirely beyond our fragile human control.
That brings us to Section 3, Beasts of Earth and Sky, Unstoppable Forces.
Leaving the treacherous water behind, we're turning our gaze to the sprawling land and the wide-open skies above, where sheer scale and raw power just dominate.
High above the ground, we have the hippogriff. First described by the 16th century Italian poet Ludovico Ariosto, this creature is a magnificent hybrid. The front half is an eagle and the back half is a horse. And this specific combination is actually deeply meaningful. Eagles traditionally symbolize the sky while horses symbolize the earth. By merging the two together, this majestic, incredibly fast creature represents humanity looking up and dreaming of impossible freedom. It beautifully weaves together the harmony of opposing forces coexisting.
But back down on Earth, we face a very different kind of force. The Cyclops from ancient Greek mythology, first appearing in Homer's Odyssey, is a giant humanoid with a single eye right in the center of its forehead. They're solitary creatures, usually herding sheep and completely ignoring laws, gods, and any social rules. What's really fascinating here is how Homer uses the most famous Cyclops, Polyphemus, who traps Odysseus and his men. Polyphemus symbolizes raw, brute power that is utterly devoid of wisdom or restraint. And this is exactly why Odysseus is able to defeat him, not with force, but with cleverness, blinding the giant and escaping out into the night.
And then, well, there's scale that just completely defies human comprehension.
In Norse myth, Jormungandr, the world's serpent, is one of the monstrous children of the god Loki. The gods feared him so much that Odin actually threw him into the ocean. But that didn't stop him. He grew so unimaginably colossal that he wrapped his heavy, scaled body around the entire earth and literally bit his own tail. He represents the terrifying inevitability of chaos. He shows us that threats grow larger the longer they are ignored, culminating in his destined final battle at Ragnarok, where he and the god Thor are fated to destroy each other.
Now for Section 4. Creatures of the Night, Predators of the Dark.
As our campfire burns down to glowing embers and the shadows start stretching longer, we're forced to confront the intimate, psychological terrors that hunt us where we should be the safest, right in our beds. Originating in the folklore of the medieval Balkans and Eastern Europe, we find the vampire. These pale, cold, ageless undead beings survive by drinking the blood of the living. To survive them, you couldn't invite them inside, and you had to rely on sunlight, stakes through the heart, holy symbols, or, full-on decapitation. But why did this myth even exist? Well, these fanged creatures were actually terrifying ancient explanations for things people just couldn't understand at the time, like the spread of mysterious diseases, sudden unexplained deaths, and the fact that our ancestors frankly had absolutely no idea how natural decomposition actually worked.
Also prowling in the night, we find the succubus. Stemming from medieval Christian demonology, this is a female demon described as beautiful and impossible to resist, appearing in dreams to seduce sleeping men. But her real goal? That was to drain life energy, health, or even the soul from her victims. This creature weaponized desire itself. In a hushed, intimate kind of terror, it served as a dark metaphor used to explain the terrifying physical experience of sleep paralysis and horrible nightmares. At the same time, it represented deep societal fears surrounding sexuality, temptation, and the loss of self-control.
Perhaps the most tragic predator of the dark, though, is Lamia. Coming from ancient Greek mythology, Lamia actually began as a human queen loved by Zeus. This caused the goddess Hera to punish her severely, either by killing Lamia's children or cursing her to never sleep, which drove her completely mad with grief. Over time, her sorrow and rage physically twisted her humanity, transforming her into a half-serpent monster that actively preyed on children. This myth tragically embodies maternal laws turned into monstrous vengeance, representing intense ancient fears surrounding motherhood and uncontrollable jealousy.
And finally, Section 5, the unseen world, magic, and chaos.
For our final realm tonight, we're looking past the monsters that physically hunt us to explore the bizarre, shifting forces of magic and chaos that exist just out of the corner of our eye. Deep in Eastern European and Russian Slavic folklore lives Baba Yaga. She's an ancient witch depicted as an old woman with iron teeth, wild hair, and supernatural strength. And her world is entirely bizarre. She lives in a forest hut that literally stands on giant chicken legs. I mean, imagine the local zoning board trying to deal with that. And she flies through the air, sitting inside a giant mortar, steering with a pestle, all while erasing her tracks with a broom. She is completely unpredictable. Sometimes she eats lost travelers, other times she shares deep wisdom or gives them magical tools. She beautifully embodies the untamed, neutral, and wild chaos of the deep woods.
Moving over to ancient Indian mythology and Hindu epics like the Ramayana, we encounter the Rakshasa. These are incredibly powerful shape-shifting beings known for deception and cruelty. While they often have really disturbing true forms, we're talking fangs, glowing eyes, and sometimes even backward hands or feet, they can easily disguise themselves as regular humans.
They infiltrate societies to manipulate and feed on fear and chaos. They serve as a chilling reminder of the severe dangers of illusion and what happens when immense power and high intelligence are used entirely without a moral compass.
Over in medieval Europe, particularly in France, we see a creature born directly from architecture, the gargoyle. Originally, these were literally just functional stone waterspouts, carved to drain rainwater away from church walls. But over time, they evolved in our minds into mythical, snarling monsters frozen in stone. It's a fascinating blend of religion and superstition, and the irony here is just great. These frightening, twisted monsters were actually the good guys. They were designed to protect sacred places by scaring far worse evil spirits away. Today, they remain a symbol of protection, essentially using fear as a defense mechanism.
And finally, we look to the east. The Japanese yokai are born from the idea that the world is absolutely full of unseen forces just beyond human understanding. Yokai isn't just one single monster, it is a massive category of strange apparitions or mysterious phenomena. They can be playful animals, violent spirits, or even ordinary household objects that get animated by age or magic. They live on the very edges of society, in forests, abandoned houses, or out on the roads at night. The yokai were created by our ancestors to explain the unexplainable: bad luck, strange natural events, and the bizarre mysteries of nature. And that brings us to the end of our journey around the fire. From the grief-stricken Lamia to the chaotic world serpent, our ancestors used these creatures to make sense of a really terrifying world. But as the fire dies out tonight and we head back into the dark, I want to leave you with one thought to chew on. If these mythical monsters were created to explain the unknown, which of these terrifying creatures are we still creating within ourselves today? The most enduring monsters, it turns out, are simply reflections of our own hidden fears, our anxieties, and our psychological struggles, making this an explainer not just of ancient myth, but a mirror into the enduring and sometimes dark nature of the human mind.